here just to give you guys, let me check the time because I actually have to go to work in like 10 minutes. I'm just here to give you guys a quick overview of my favorite Golgari creatures. I'm building a new Golgari control deck. It's based off the graveyard, doing a lot of play out of that. My favorite creatures in this deck right now that I think any person, whether you're a beginner or not, should invest in for the Golgari deck. Of course, Erbos, God of the Dead. He's pretty awesome. I never really have a devotion to black that's like 5 or more because creatures are constantly on the battlefield and off the battlefield, back on, back off. It gets really confusing when you play with the graveyard like that, but he's rarely the 5/7 indestructible creature. I mainly just use him as like an indestructible enchantment so that my opponents can't gain life. Pretty awesome, about $8 right now. A little bit pricey, but he's really good to have in the Golgari control deck. My favorite small creature? Slitherhead. Because, as you can see, he has no scavenge cost, which is really cool. So you don't even have to pay anything to exile him to put that +1/+1 counter on something else. So that's pretty awesome. My favorite card in all of Magic right now when we're talking about Golgari is Corpsejack Menace. He's pretty cool because he's 4 mana to put out for a 4/4, so he's pretty solid, and he also has that ability of doubling +1/+1 counters, which there is a lot of in my Golgari deck. Like Scourge of Skull Veil, pretty awesome, brand new Born of the Gods card. He costs 3 mana to put out, and it says 0/0 at the bottom, but he comes out with 2 +1/+1 counters, and if you've got Corpsejack Menace already on the table, you pay 3 mana, and he basically comes out with 4 +1/+1 counters. Then you can sacrifice little creatures to take their toughness and put that on this guy. So like you could easily sacrifice Slitherhead, you know, and get 1 +1/+1 counter to put on Scourge of Skull Veil, but then it's doubled because of Corpsejack, so that's 2 +1/+1 counters. It's a pretty effective card. Also, of course, Golgari. Jarad, he's pretty awesome. I mean, he's 4 mana for a 4/4, but he racks up the points and the +1 counters really, really fast since you're working out of your graveyard. Especially if you pair it with enchantment card like Deadbridge Chant or something, so that there are constantly creatures in the graveyard. And those +1/+1 counters get doubled by Corpsejack Menace. So that's pretty awesome. The last but definitely not least is Nighthowler. Nighthowler's pretty cool. 3 to put out. He's an enchantment creature, so you can also bestow him, but I generally just use him as the creature himself. He comes on with a 0/0, but his power and toughness are equal to the collective amount of creature cards in all graveyards, so you and your opponent. So that's pretty cool. I mean, if you're killing other creatures with some pretty fancy removal, and then you've got Deadbridge Chant in, you know, sending cards to your graveyard, and then you're also sacrificing creatures, you're going to have a lot of creatures in the graveyards total. So his power and toughness can get pretty up there. Corpsejack Menace does not work with Nighthowler though, because as you can see, it doesn't say +1/+1 counters. It just says his life is XX, where X is equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. Doesn't specify +1/+1 counters, so there's no doubling going on with Corpsejack Menace. But those are, really quickly, my absolute favorite Golgari cards right now. I mean, still, new player, there's probably a lot out there I don't know about, and I am only doing standard, so things from past games I'm really not too interested in working with. I like sticking with what's currently acceptable if you were to play tournament or whatnot. Not that I do, but I just feel like that's fair. So yeah, Nighthowler, Jarad, Erbos, God of the Dead, Slitherhead, great chump blocker, Corpsejack Menace, amazing ability, solid creature, Scourge of Skull Veil. Also, my honorable mentions are Accursed Spirit and Deadly Recluse, just because Accursed Spirit has that Intimidate, great to sideboard, so if you end up playing against a deck that doesn't have any black in it, that's like free 3 damage done every single time you attack. And Deadly Recluse, 2 mana for a 1/2 with Reach and Death Touch. I mean, that'll stop most opponents in their tracks until they can get some removal out to take that away. And then once it goes into your graveyard, you can just use those +1/+1 counters for Jarad or Nighthowler or something like that. Anyways, I have to go to work, so that was my favorite Golgari cards for the week. See you later.